My name's Adam, and I'm the chair of the Professional Development Committee. I'm here along with my associates, Daniel and Viviana, and we are beyond excited to introduce four superstars in the field of dental entrepreneurship and practice ownership: Dr. Stuchlick, Allmand, Dorfman, and Austin. Dr. Stuchlick graduated from the University of Texas School of Dentistry in Houston and went on to become a partner at the Dentistry of the Oaks practice shortly after. Dr. Stuchlick is a very active member in the dental community and recently received the Texas New Dentist of the Year award. Dr. Allman graduated from Indiana University School of Dentistry and entered directly into the Air Force. After 5 years of service, he joined private practice as an associate and ended up buying the practice after 2 years. In addition to his dental practice, Dr. Allman founded Apex Payment Solutions, which focuses on helping healthcare professionals better manage their overhead and finances. Dr. Dorfman completed her dental training at USC Ehrman Ostro School of Dentistry and is the owner of multiple dental practices in the LA area. She's also a well-established speaker, podcaster, and influential figure in the dental community. In addition to her dental practices, Dr. Dorfman is also the COO of Yappy, a paperless dental software designed to enhance the business side of dentistry. Finally, Dr. Austin graduated from the University of Texas Health Science Center San Antonio Dental School. In addition to owning his own practice, Dr. Austin is a published author and renowned lecturer in restorative dentistry and reputation management. He holds membership and leadership positions in many notable dental organizations and was also a previous recipient of the Texas New Dentist of the Year award. Before we begin this seminar, I would like to briefly go over the format for everyone tuning in. Dr. Stuchlick and Allman will be our speakers for part one of this Business 101 event. So there will be a part two where Dr. Dorfman and Austin will serve as the key speakers. This time, Dr. Dorfman and Austin will serve as moderators. So following the talks from Dr. Stuchlick and Allman, please feel free to unmute yourself or drop messages in the chat with your name, because we want this to be a really interactive session. So without further ado, Dr. Stuchlick and Allman, take it away.
Hello, I'm Katie Stuchlick. I'm just going to tell you guys a little bit about where I got started right out of dental school and kind of where I am today. So when I graduated from dental school, I started working for a really awesome mentor of mine, Duke Ho. He's somebody who was really involved in organized dentistry when I was in school. And so I met him, I think, my second year of dental school, and just kind of fostered a relationship with him. And I went to work at his large group practice. There were 4 full-time dentists at the practice at the time. They added me because one of the dentists was retiring, probably about 7 months into me working. But I guess they really liked me, so they decided to find a way to squeeze me into their practice during that transition time. So I worked there for 3 years. It was a large volume practice. At the time, they were taking a lot of DMO plans, so it was very, very busy. I got to do anything and everything I wanted. They paid for me to go to an implant course. This was kind of towards the end of me leaving there, so I only placed 2 implants while I was there, but a lot of endo, a lot of crowns, a lot of bridge, everything you can imagine. If I was comfortable with doing it, I did it. And if I wasn't comfortable doing it, I would sometimes still do it and ask for help in the middle of it. So it was a really, really awesome learning experience. Because I didn't do a residency, that was where I went. And it was basically, Dr. Ho would always say, call me his resident, because all I did was ask questions the entire time when I was working for him. So probably about 2.5 years into working there, maybe more in between 2 and 2.5 years, I decided that I wanted to open my own practice. My dad was sick at the time, and I was spending a lot of time traveling so the practice was in Katy, and I live closer into Houston. Katy is a 30-minute suburb, 30 minutes outside of Katy. And so I was spending a lot of time driving from home to MD Anderson to Katy and back, and it got really, really exhausting. And to me, that commute was a big deal. I loved the people that I worked with, but the stress of that job and the commute really, really made me want to start my own practice. There's a girl that I went to dental school with who we didn't really hang out very much in dental school, but we were friends. and we lived in the same neighborhood. So after dental school, we became friends. Her husband worked in oil and gas. My husband works in oil and gas. And we just started spending a lot of time together. She was working in a suburb, kind of 30 to 45 minutes the other direction that I was. And it was similar practice, large group practice. She was the only female dentist there, just like I was. And, you know, we just kind of decided that we hated our commutes and we wanted to bring our skills to the neighborhood that we live in. And so we took the long road to start our practice and started from the ground up. We're in a strip center, a busy intersection. We are about to have our 3-year anniversary in October, and it has grown way more than I can imagine. And it's been a really, really exciting experience that I will share more about later.
Thank you, Katie. Zach, you're up.
Hi, I'm Zach Allmand. I graduated dental school in 2005 and went, like Adam said, went directly into the Air Force. I actually joined the Air Force or joined the military while I was a first year dental student about 3 weeks after 9/11. I didn't really have a plan to do it, but I walked into the recruiter's office and they're like, hold up, let's just leave you in dental school. We'll pay for your time there and then you can be a dentist in the Air Force. So I did an AEGD residency in Wright Pat, Ohio, focusing on full mouth rehabs, oral surgery, and endo mostly, to prepare me to go to a smaller base. And little did I know also to prepare me to go to Afghanistan for about a 5-month vacation. So spent some time in the military, got to basically do all the dentistry that I wanted to do. I spearheaded bringing CEREC technology to our base. We went through the red cam, blue cam, and as I was leaving, we were about to add the Omnicam. Went into private practice, actually started working with, we moved back to Indiana, started working with one of my roommates from dental school in his practice, helped him kind of get that up and running, and just really decided that it wasn't really the type of practice that I wanted to spend the rest of my career in. And just like Katie, there was a guy, we were friends in dental school, but our wives were actually sorority sisters, and he had a practice opportunity that he told me about at a bridal or at a baby shower. And so we kind of solidified a partnership over a case of Miller Lite that night. And it's been 8.5 years. We're full private practice up in Indianapolis. We bought an existing practice. Unlike Katie, it had been around since 1957. So we are the second generation of owners of the practice. It's fee for service. Really focusing more on kind of larger cases, not so much emergency care, but more comprehensive kind of adult treatment. And I also founded Apex Payment Solutions shortly after we bought the practice. And it kind of happened just by chance. One of the things that I was really focused on in young ownership was, how am I going to pay myself? We bought a practice that was at a premium and it was running an overhead of about 75, 77%. And so I immediately took over diving into our overhead and seeing where we could cut costs. And merchant services was a glaringly, obviously easy one. And everybody in the industry just seemed a little shady. So I luckily had a friend from the military, or from my time in the military, who was doing merchant services in restaurant service industry, and he kind of helped me just navigate the waters, figure out what I was looking at, how to understand and interpret things. And about a year after we started running in my practice, we both kind of thought, hey, this is something that we could do better. We could offer it to my client or my colleagues and friends, it just at an honest rate. Kind of my idea was, if I can take this piece of dentistry and do it better for my colleagues and take the stress of this piece of ownership off of their shoulders so they can focus more on patient care and other parts of business, it's a win-win. We grow a business and we help my colleagues out. So it's been a lot of fun, and it's grown exponentially, a lot more quickly and a lot larger scale than I thought was possible. And that's where I am today.
This is incredible. You know what I love about this panel is that pretty much all of the pathways that you can take after dental school are represented here, whether it's doing a practice residency, going into military, and thank you for your service, Zach. I hopefully you don't get dropped in the middle of a Kyrgyzstan revolution when you join the military. But you know, whether you decide to do that or you decide to start your own practice like Josh did, whether you choose to join an existing practice or start a partnership with a classmate like Katie did, there are pretty much all of the options here are on the table. And one of the questions that I would love to ask you guys is, what advice would you give to a fourth year student preparing for life after dental school?
I think I would say maybe not necessarily just fourth years, but kind of everybody on this call, no matter whatever year you're in. I think the biggest thing you can do when you have time outside of school is try to network with as many dentists as you can. Maybe specifically where you want to practice. I know all you guys up there in the New York area don't necessarily stay in New York. In Texas, we kind of stay in Texas whenever we graduate from dental school here. So it's a little bit easier. But even if it's just a connection via Facebook or Instagram, you know, something like that, just trying to foster relationships, because other dentists are really how you're going to find a job or help you, you know, if you plan on starting a practice, things like that. And so that would be my advice for, you know, fourth years and all of you guys, is just to network as much as you can.
Excellent. Zach?
So I think the dental landscape has changed a lot since I was in dental school. You know, back in 2005, when I was a senior, DSOs were really just starting. Kind of, they, you know, Heartland would have a lunch and learn at the dental school, but not many people would go. Everybody was still focused on private practice or starting their own practices. And I feel like a lot of what at least myself and my friends did is we didn't get started early enough in our search. Like we just assumed there were going to be jobs. We assumed that we'd be able to just still hang a shingle and start your own practice and be successful. And I think that, especially in today's landscape, that's not true. Luck benefits the well-prepared. And so the sooner you can get started in your fourth year of, exactly like Katie said, networking, coming up with just a career vision for yourself. What do you want to do? Where do you want to practice? Where do you want to live? And having that plan, and then just reaching out to different people. Don't get so bogged down in graduation requirements or I don't know, going out on a Tuesday night. Really focus more on your overall plan, because once you graduate, especially with the load or with the loan load that people are coming out with, you're going to need to hit the ground running and be prepared as much as possible. You don't really have the luxury of taking a 2 or 3 month sabbatical and figuring out where you want to practice or wait for the right associateship for you. You have to go out and find it and be active in that search.
You mean you didn't go backpacking in Europe for a year, Zach, after you finished dental school? The armed forces weren't super cool with that?
Does carrying a 50-pound rucksack through the Kyrgyz mountains count? No.
For someone that's the next new hipster travel hot thing is going to be that. So that sounds great. I have a question for Katie, based on your practice description. Katie, you and I both went to school in Texas, where a residency is not required. Now we're talking to a bunch of dental students who are in New York, where a residency basically is required, or at least some sort of PGY1. Had you done a residency, what are some of the things you would have wanted to learn in that residency?
Oh gosh. One, at this point, I would say implants. I think that's just a really growing, no matter what specialty you end up in, I think, you know, general, whatever, I think that's very important. And then 2, picking up speed. Like I said, I worked in a practice where I was lucky enough that I saw a ton of patients and I just had to get fast. But I think a residency where you're going to be busy would be important, not one where it's going to be just like dental school, where you get, 4 hours for an MOD composite on number 4. So those are the 2 things that I would look for.
Yeah. Well, So you just finished a curriculum at Implant Pathways, which is a really great place to go learn to do implants, where you're hands-on basically from day one, minute one. My thought is, there are places like that to learn implants, like Pathways and other ones. IV sedation, it to me seems like the tough one. Like if you don't learn that in a residency setting, it's really expensive and difficult to get that skill outside of a residency.
Yeah.
Just because of the way that the educational system lines up for that. You have to do so many cases, and trying to do that trying to knock out 24 IV sedations at a weekend course, like just isn't going to happen. So I think looking forward, at least for me, I think implant placement obviously is a huge part of it. The stuff that you talked about, speed and whatnot, but looking for a place where you're going to come out, certified to do IV sedation, really makes you valuable for a practice, because if you can come in and sedate, chances are if there's a 55-year-old white male dentist that's in that practice, that's probably a skill that they don't have. They refer out a lot of that. And so that's something that's a value add to the practice that you bring in immediately. Gina, I have a question for Zach, if that's okay with you.
Go ahead.
Zach, you seem like a business-oriented guy. You seem like a business boy. From a cost-benefit analysis, did the military make financial sense for your career, or did you feel like you owed them more than what you got out of it?
So that's a great question. And I think that has, my perspective has changed through the years. The residencies, so the AEGD residency, I definitely came out on top of that. And just like you were talking, because it was basically 3-month rotations through each of the specialties. And they said, here, do as many extractions as you can, do as many IV sedations as you want to, do as many root canals as you want to. And I really kind of took that opportunity. There's 2 ways you can go, right? Because it's like, do you want to do the bare minimum, or do you want to bust your butt and do as many as you can? And I know that I came out of there not with the most root canal. I had the second most canals obturated in the residency. Katie, these are things that I really like hang my hat on. But I had the most units of crown and bridge, to the point that the lab tech, because we had our own in-house lab, they sat down with me and they're like, hey, can you slow down? Like, you can't be doing crowns on all these retirees. And I'm like, why not? Like, you guys are here, I'm here. Let's do it. Like, it's only going to, it's a win-win situation. You get more, at bats with stacking porcelain. I get more at bats with prepping crowns. I don't see why this is a loss. So my residency was great. When I was on active duty, especially in the middle of it, I did not feel, I felt like my time was being wasted because just of the format that they had. I had 2 assistants. I had to fight for a second assistant. They were only letting us run 1 room at a time. And it was very much based off of, well, you can't work the assistants too hard. You have to give them time to turn over. And eventually I got to utilize what's called their DTR system, where I had 2 assistants, so I could like bounce between rooms. And I really used my time as like a precursor to private practice. I knew I didn't want to spend my entire time in the military. And so I was just doing as much as I could. I was our base pretend odontist. And I'd at least take a crack at every root canal. If I had to send it off to the off-base endodontist, that is what it is. Did I freeze? Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you, but you're frozen solid from visual.
Sorry. Apparently the Wi-Fi in this room has decided to stop working as well. So the further, and especially today, when I went to dental school, my tuition was $24,500. I remember that number. I was like, man, I could have made up the difference because my captain's salary was $68,000. But dental students coming out of school now, the tuition, the loans are so much greater. You would only get a much greater value out of that time served.
That makes sense.
Josh, if you don't mind, I have a backup question for both Katie and Zach. And sadly, I feel like Zach had better reception when he was in Kyrgyzstan than he has in where are you, Indiana?
Indianapolis.
I am. It's basically Kyrgyzstan. Nobody wants to be here.
So So first of all, I think we all got a better value of Zach being in the military than that Zach did.
Mhm.
But as an employer who employs many associates, I definitely feel the value of someone who went through residency like Zach did, whether it was during a supposedly tulip revolution in Kyrgyzstan or or not. So my question is to both panelists, actually, are you glad that you went to residency? And Katie, do you regret not doing this? Because there was a time, I know Josh and I did not do residency, and I don't know how Josh feels about it, but I personally at some point regretted not doing residency because my clinical skills graduating were not where they should have been. So Katie, do you regret doing it? And Zach, do you feel like that gave you a clinical advantage?
I think at the time in my life, I made the right decision for myself and, you know, for my then at the time future husband, because I did apply to residencies and I interviewed, but they were all out of state. And I had just started dating my now husband whenever I had to match, and I didn't rank any residency program because I was like, I don't want to leave this state anymore. I want to see where this goes. Fortunately, it worked out for me, and I, you know, put all my eggs in that one basket, and it's been fine. But had I, you know, not been in the situation that I was, I think I would have done a lot better in a residency. I do nowadays, thinking back about the ones that I applied to and what I was looking for out of them is not what I would look for now. So, you know, there is a little regret here and there that I could be, you know, like to Zach's comment about endo. I do a lot of root canals. I love endo. And there are plenty of days where I'm like, man, I could have been an endodontist. Why didn't I go to endo? So, you know, there are days that I will regret it, but I'm happy where I'm at now.
Thank you.
I think it's very situational. I think it's very much depends on the mindset of the individual. I came out of dental school pretty confident in my skills, but when I got into the residency, I realized how little I actually knew about clinical dentistry. I mean, they always say that you learn 5 times or whatever, 10 times as much in your first year out as you did in the entirety of dental school. I truly felt that I was drinking from a fire hose, but I had the mentality of like, bring it on. Like the more I can learn, the better. So definitely, I highly recommend a residency, but it depends on what you want to do. If you want to be, you know, like Josh was talking about, because the implant pathways courses can take you to the same place, right? It all depends on how actively you want to be. True. But you know, it all the training in the world isn't going to make up for a lack of motivation on the individual, right? And so what I will say is my residency helped me to become a much better comprehensive treatment planner because I had exposure to each of the different types of specialties. And so I had to look at each case, and we had case roundups every week. It was like we had to the super complex cases where they're like, okay, figure it out, now make it happen. And so we were actually had to do each of the steps. We didn't get to punt to the specialist. And so I think that has helped me because when a patient walks in, even if they, you know, I do a lot with our oncology teams here in Indianapolis, and I get some really like complex cases. Patients come in swollen, don't even know where to start. And I feel that if I hadn't had that training, I wouldn't be able to handle those cases. But when I look at them, I'm like, okay, so it's this piece, this piece, this piece. And that's really my favorite part of dentistry is the complex treatment planning and comprehensively looking at, okay, how can we take a person from here, getting them back to health, and then even beyond that point. So, and I think that was the greatest strength that I got from my residency. So, but it all depends on the type of residency you go into, right? So, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, but I'm a big fan of the military residencies.
I have a question for Zach and Gina, actually. So you are both, as I called Zach a business boy and Gina's a business girl. You guys now have full-fledged companies that sort of function within dentistry, but away from the chair. But at some point, those were just side hustles, right? And then Katie obviously has her Rodan and Fields side hustle that she's really passionate about. If you're interested in improving the quality of your skin, please see Katie's Rodan and Fields.
And it looks like it's actually working.
It's great.
Well.
It's
Katie,
so high
send
quality.
me samples.
Oh my gosh.
There's nothing better than a dentist who has a Rodan and Fields sales account.
He knows how much I hate those MLMs.
I want you guys to talk a little bit about how that side hustle, both Apex and Yappy, put a strain on you as a dentist, because I'm assuming there was a point at which it was more profitable for you to be chairside than it was to be doing stuff with Apex or with Yappy. And then at some point that flip-flops, and now it becomes more profitable for you to be a CEO of your company and less profitable to be chained to a chair. And so if you guys could each spend like 2 minutes of your journey on that, that would be great, because I think that's something that every dentist, like every dental student, wants to invent something. You know, every dentist wants to have a digital smile design or some instrument named after them. And then you realize like what it takes to actually do that, and the hours and the hard work and whatnot. And so I think this is just fascinating information.
Gina, I'll let you go first so you can paint the rosy picture, and then I can beat everybody down with the reality of how terrible it is.
Okay, so just so you guys know, overnight success in business, it takes anywhere between 5 to 10 years. Okay, so whatever looks easy and fun and nice actually came from 10 years of pain, and nothing is as painful as when it actually starts to pay off and you actually now have to do the real work. Now it becomes painful. The easiest money I ever made were probably back-to-back rounds. That's the easiest money you're ever going to make in dentistry. Everything else takes hard work and dedication, and it looks amazing, and it's fun, because it is fun, because anything you love is fun, right? Which is why removable and endo never seems like fun. But by the way, if you can figure out how to make it work and be good at it, it'll be very, very profitable for you. Just a tidbit. But I am supposed to be a moderator. It's not about me. I'll come back and talk about this all you want. All I can tell you is don't do anything for money. Do things for love. It's going to be just as hard, but it's going to be a little bit more fun to do it.
Yeah, and I'll just echo on that. I mean, I'm at year 5. We're in the middle of year 5 with Apex in its full inception, and it is just now to the point where I can say it's always been fun. Just like Gina said, like it's always been a passion of mine. Just because I hate. I'm kind of an asshole. I'm just going to say that. In what I mean by that is, like, when we were looking at the overhead, I just realized how much people try to take advantage of dentists, and I hated that. And I just wanted to do something different, and I wanted to do something that would benefit our profession, and I wanted to do it better than the competition and take them out. And so I've always had a competitive nature, and I just wanted, before Apex, like, I had the idea that I wanted to grow to 10 practices. Like, I wanted to get the practice that we had under our belts, get it up and running smoothly, and I wanted to acquire more practices and grow that way. And, you know, my partner has been very good throughout this situation, because he's the one that keeps us grounded. And he's like, hey, you know, I don't know that that's the model that I want to do. I enjoy doing this practice and doing it well. And so I said, okay, I'm going to look for something else to do. And I found Apex, and I was fortunate to be able to do it with one of my best friends. So it's been a fun journey for us, but it definitely hasn't come without sacrifice. Specifically on from my family life. Like, my wife is also a dentist, and she has just very graciously kind of allowed me to chase these dreams. And you know, I really think that her career has kind of taken a back seat to mine until recently because of it. And I feel terrible about that. But the thought process behind Apex was creating something that will create passive income that would allow me to step away from the chair and spend more time with the family. But it's really just now coming to that point. And there were, for the first 3 years, I mean, I would work 10-hour days at the dental practice. I'd come home, eat dinner, and then I would work on Apex until about 1 o'clock at night. And then I'd get up at 5 o'clock and go to the gym and rinse and repeat. So, I mean, I was burning the wick from both ends. Now it has gotten to that 5-year mark where we've been able to grow to a point where I have a good established team, support team, sales team, marketing team, where I don't have to do the day-to-day of the Apex, but, you know, kind of more an advisory role and just overseeing everything. So it's gotten to the point where it's really good, but it did not come overnight and it did not come easy, for sure.
Zach, you said burning the wick at both ends. I think you mean the candle, in which case you should check out my Scentsy shop at scentsy.joshuaaustinDDS.com. That's my side hustle. Let's make my office smells great.
Speaking of side hustles, so the last time I did a presentation for ASDA, I talked about actually Dr. Austin. I talked about finding your passion and how important it is to find a passion that is not just chair side, because we are all, I mean, obviously we're in this profession because we like to help people. That's the thing we put on the resume, right? Or that's what you all wrote on your dental school applications, I bet, because I did that, right? But it's so important if we're going to last in this profession, because there are going to be some down days, there are going to be some easy days, there are going to be amazing days. But through this all, you have to lean in with your passion. And my passion happens to be still in dentistry, but it's entrepreneurship. It's you know, just having fun, finding ways to make our jobs better. And Zach's passion is finding pennies to be saved that add up over time. And Josh loves to speak and to travel and to be on the stage. The stage is his oyster. Katie, my question for you, because I know you were, okay, first of all, you are the only person I know who was a live mascot for anything. Who can make it? I mean, that's amazing. So, but besides that, what is your passion and how do you lean in with your passion in the world of dentistry?
I think Josh would know this, and anybody else that knows me. I do a lot with organized dentistry. I was the president of the Houston Academy of General Dentistry last year. I am serving this year as an ADA alternate delegate. I spend a lot of time with organized dentistry and trying to make our profession better, doing all the lobbying and all of that stuff, and spending the time to help plan CE events and big meetings and things like that. So that's my passion in and kind of out in dentistry, but outside the office. And yes, I was the mascot at the University of Texas when I was an undergrad.
I absolutely love that. Thank you. Zach, besides saving money, how do you find your passion?
I mean, that's a good question, because, you know, when I knew I wanted to be a dentist ever since I was 6. I remember telling my mom that, and she kind of was like, no, anything but that, because she's deathly afraid of the dentist. She's deathly afraid of coming to see me. But I respected my dentist growing up. Like I remember going to see him and it always being an enjoyable experience. I was like, hey, you know, I want to do something like that. And so I just always knew I wanted to be a dentist. So I think it came inherently. I just had that drive through undergrad and into dental school. And then I guess, as nerdy as it sounds, I mean, my other passion is numbers. Like I love like the treasure hunt of trying to find where can I cut down my overhead. Like I am absolutely proud that our overhead hovers between 39 and 42%. And I will drop that into any conversation I can. You know, it's just, the numbers is what's always kind of driven me and just like excited me, I guess. Yes, I'm a nerd. Thank you. I know.
Hey, Gina, for the last, we have what, about 15 to 20 minutes left here. Do you guys want to do some rapid fire questions where you guys just sort of like quick, short answer as we go through some of our pre-populated questions? Still would love some questions from the audience. So if you guys have any, drop them in there. But how about this one? How do you know when you're ready to open a practice? Katie?
When you're tired of working for other people.
Zach?
You're never going to be ready.
That was my answer. Gina, I'm curious what your answer on that is.
I was born ready.
You were born ready. Of course you were. Of course you were. As times continue to change, i.e. social media, Instagram, teledentistry, et cetera, what do you think makes a successful dentist in 2021, Zach?
Oh, good. Thanks. Listen, success isn't measured by anybody else's parameters. It's measured internally. If you are happy and successful, working 3 days a week, making $150,000, and you get to coach your kids' little league team, you're successful. If your success is determined by creating the next Heartland Dental and driving Ferraris and owning, Rolexes, then that's what's going to make you successful. But don't let somebody else's success determine your own success.
Katie?
Taking care of people and doing the right thing. I think that's what makes you successful.
I like that.
I want to change my answer to Katie's.
Gina, do you have an answer to that one?
No, I like Katie's answer.
I like Katie's answer too.
Answer.
Well, we all know that
it incorporates what Zach was saying too. Like, success is what you define it as, but really that's the overarching goal.
It's all wrong though. The only successful answer
is what Katie defines it as.
It's the only successful answer is being Michael Appa. That's the only way to be successful in 2021 is to be Michael Appa. That's it. I do think I do want to bring this up because this is something Katie and I talk about a lot. There is a lot of, and you guys are like right in the square demographic of experiencing this. There's a lot of fakeness and phoniness out there, and buying likes and buying followers and all of that stuff. And I would shudder to think that anyone thinks that is what makes somebody successful in dentistry. Some of the wealthiest dentists I know are dentists that you've never heard of, that own a couple practices or own their practice, and they do very well in it, and they invest outside of that very well, and they live the life that they want to live, just like Zach was talking about. And so I would shudder to think that anybody would tie success to Instagram. But if that's what it is for you, I guess that's okay. But knowing like that road to be the next Michael Appa is going to be a really hard road. And at the end of it, when you get there, is it even real? Like what do you really have at the end of the day? And so that's just kind of my thought on that.
And that brings me to the next question, which is actually not on a list of questions that I'm supposed to ask, but I'm going to ask it anyway, because I think it's very important, because this is one of the things that I've experienced personally, growing up as a dentist, is dealing with screwing up, dealing with making mistakes, dealing with debonded restoration, sensitivity, high occlusion. Because here's the thing, when you go through dental school, they teach you how to be successful doing all of the right things, using one bonding agent, one curing light, one whatever. And then you get out and you start making mistakes, and every single mistake feels like you fall on a knife every single day. And you take it home and you live it, and you live with that. And I obviously want to hear from Katie and Zach, but I'm going to pose a question to you, Josh, because you were really most outspoken about this.
Yeah, I'm probably the only person on the panel that has threatened to commit suicide because somebody in my office lost posts. And that's a story on my podcast from a while back. Gina probably can tell you what episode that was. Dentistry's hard, man. And clinical failures tear me down as much as anything else. And so for me, like I found some success with a therapist in dealing with some of those issues. And there are some people out there that clinical failures don't bother them at all. I'd love to name some of their names, but I won't do that. But for a lot of you, it will really bother you and it will really eat at you. And it's okay to see a therapist. It's totally okay. And it might be the only way that you can get through it. And I think realizing what your intentions are really important. Is like, hey, if someone needs an endo because of a crown prep that you did, it's not really your fault. Like, biology happens, right? And that becomes a hard thing to recognize. Partially because when you're in dental school, you're only tracking patients for like 2 years at the most, right? So like, you never see your failures in dental school because you're graduated before they ever happen. When you get into practice, it really starts happening.
Geographic success.
Yeah, that's exactly geographic success. And so I take it really hard, and therapy has been something that's helped me. I think Zach and Katie probably have their heads much less up their ass than I do in regards to that, because it probably doesn't bother them as much as it bothers me. I don't know, Zach, Katie, do you guys have anything to add to that?
So yes and no. For me, clinical failures only they don't bother me because I use each one as a learning experience. And like Katie said, at the end of the day, you have to take care of the patient. And so if that means there's one case I remember. He's actually now a good friend, but he came in abscess number 2 before I had a CBCT, and I did a root canal, and it was fine for a year. It did a root canal and crown, and it was fine for a year. And he came back in. It was re-abscess, sent him to the endodontist. He had a fracture the whole time. And I said, you know what, Kurt? I was like, this is on me. I should have recognized this. I'm going to credit you everything that you paid towards the implant restoration. And he really appreciated that. It allowed me to sleep at night knowing that I wasn't taking advantage of the guy. I basically made him whole. And you just have to do that. But that led us to, before I do endo now, I take a CBCT on every patient because I want to know, is it fractured? How many canals are there? I can't, no matter how good my magnification is, I'm not going to know every time whether there's an MB2 or like a distal 3 on number 19. I need all the information available. And so I try to use each failure. And guys, there's going to be tons of them. I mean, I've only been practicing for 15 years and I have a ton of failures. The more reps you get, the more opportunities you're going to have for failure, and nobody's 100% successful all the time. So try not to beat yourself up, but try to look at each of the failures that you have and say, okay, why did that happen? And learn from it and make the adjustment to be better tomorrow.
See,
anything
with me, when I see an endo that I was actually successful that I did, I wonder, why did it work? It looks horrible. Why did it work? Anyway,
it's because you use that Sargenti paste.
Right.
A reference that nobody on this call is going to get.
I actually had a situation today that was not my best, but I actually forgot about it already because I had already kind of changed the course of action for this patient, and she left fine and happy, and I forgot about it until you just brought up this clinical failure thing. Sometimes it really does bother me, and I get beat down and upset about it, but most of the time that I've had a situation where I'm more upset about it than the patient is, and I think eventually over time I just get over it, and like you said, Zach, just learning from those mistakes and changing things from there.
Gina, we have a question from the audience. Can I ask it?
Yes, please. You are good at asking questions. Not
Diana,
answering.
Diana, where are you at? Diana, pop on your camera.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Diana, hit us with your question.
Okay, so my question was, can you tell us if there are any key to building an efficient yet positive team that you've learned through your journey? I think there's a lot that can be said about team building and whatnot, so I would love to know your kind of input.
Oh my gosh.
Anybody is way more qualified
oh my God,
to
yes.
this than me, so.
I just want to say that that has been the hardest thing about starting a practice. 3 years in, and I think the person that works at our front desk has changed like 11 times or something. But we are finally, in the past year, have been really lucky and have a pretty solid team. And we hope that it's going to last for a while. And for us, it's just showing appreciation to our team, you know, kind of getting the bad egg out of there as soon as we can, which is easier said than done. I think we're kind of experiencing that right now with one of our employees, but it is very, very hard. And yes, it is very important. And it's one of the hardest things in starting a brand new practice, is trying to fit all the pieces of the puzzle together in terms of your team.
Just to echo that, like, HR is the hardest part of practice ownership. Like, creating a harmonious team environment that is non-toxic is difficult. I think that the most important thing to create that is to have set expectations, roles, and systems in the office. And I'm not speaking from example, because 8 years in and we're still trying to navigate those waters. But the more confusion that there is in, well, whose responsibility is this? Or nobody told me this is my responsibility. If you can say, well, what's your handbook say? Or what is the company policy? It just creates a cut and dry expectation of the team members, and it gives them a standard that they know from day one that they have to live up to. And if they don't, there's going to be repercussions. But like I said, it's really hard to do. And as a business owner, because you want to be friendly with your staff. You don't want them to view you as like a dictator or like just the angry guy. And it's hard. Katie, I don't know if you encounter this too, but even in a partnership, there is a little bit of like, staff will play you against your partner.
Yes.
Or like, there's also like the, I guess, insecurity of, do they like me? Do they like him more than they like me? Am I the bad cop? Why am I always the bad cop? Maybe I should do something nice. And then it just backfires. Because at the end of the day, like, they are employees. You have to be you have to have strong leadership starting from the top down. And that starts with set expectations and holding everybody on the team to the same expectations.
Katie, you buried the lead. You've uncovered one of the great secrets of dental teams, and that's having a male dental assistant. Oh, yeah. Super underrated. It's a great thing. Male dental assistants are, generally speaking, just like willing to do whatever. They don't gossip. It's like a wild. They're few and far between, but when you can find a good one, they're great. Yeah. They can also put the water on the water cooler. I mean, I don't have to do it, which is really great. It's just one of those really great things.
They paint things. They do a lot of things. But
yeah,
you know, if you can find one, great. If you can find 5, amazing.
Yeah. your male dental assistants like unclog pipes and stuff like that as well, right? They do like plumbing work around your office.
Right. Like
yours
like
too?
Everything is done.
Oh.
Diana, you asked
That's what my husband's for.
Because this is something that we can lecture for hours. And like, you know, please, Adam, are you taking notes? Please tune in for more episodes of the show, because we can talk about this for you know, it's finding the right people is going to make you or break you. And the nice thing about finding the right people is that you don't have to do a lot if you have the right people. If you feel like you are doing a lot of work managing people, you don't have the right people.
Gina, we got another question. I want to bring up Brendan Gallagher.
Brendan. Go ahead.
Do you want me to ask it, or do you want?
Yeah, shoot. Go on. First time caller.
Great. This was more geared towards Dr. Zach with opening up the multi-practices. You were saying you're finding the pennies and how to save a lot. I was wondering, does in a multi-practice environment, does saving here and there, do you ever see it come at a cost, such as with company culture, or maybe with certain paying going out, or dental materials, for example?
Sure. And so just to clarify, I don't own multiple practices. I thought I wanted to, but we just have one. But we do have a 39 to 42% overhead. Have I mentioned that before? So wow. For me, it's it always comes at a cost, right? So, and you have to balance that. for us, the best way to balance it is we pay cash for everything. And we do all of our renovations or updates in baby steps. And that's something that a lot of young dentists fall prey to, is the dental rep trying to sell you on the CBCT, the CEREC, everything digital all the time. Oh, you need multiple scanners, one for each of your hygiene rooms. No, you absolutely don't. You have to get your feet underneath you, establish your business practices, and grow from there. Like I pride myself on our overhead because we are still a very technologically advanced office. We are full CEREC integration with Sirona CBCT. We're adding an iTero, electric handpieces, but we do everything in pieces. The practice that we bought was stuck in the 90s. Like literally, it had low voltage lighting across everything, shag carpet throughout all of the operatories, paper charts. And so when we bought it, like we set a plan. Okay, year one, we're going digital. We're going to get Dentrix in every operatory. We're going to start using it. We're going to have flat screens on every wall, intraoral cameras in every operatory. Okay, done. We let that run for a year. Year three, we went through a major renovation where it was just aesthetic, but we actually added space, added a doctor's office. And, it was our big investment for the year because we built value into the practice. Done. Year and a half later, we added CEREC. And that's something that I wanted from day one, but we just couldn't make it work financially until that piece because there are higher priorities at the time. And then 2019, we added the CBCT. So, and this year we're adding, the iTero and the electric handpieces, and we're just continuing to add and to grow, but at a manageable rate, because we always will. Like, one of the biggest pieces that I have one of the biggest tools at my disposal is my accountant. And what we'll do is we'll go through a monthly breakdown of our overhead expenses. And I have a range, my lab range, 3 to 7%. Are we outside of that range? Okay, why? What did we spend more on? We need to rein it back in. And just going through your different systems on a rolling basis, like picking one piece and looking at it once every 6 months. Look at your supplies. Well, are you using the best bonding agent? Are you sacrificing quality of your care for the cost of for the equipment or the material? Don't do that. Like, you have to be able to sleep at night knowing that you're providing the best clinical care for your patients, but you also have to sleep at night knowing that you're going to make payroll, right? And so it's a balance between everything. And my advice is just be sensible about it. Don't get sucked into having the sexiest office in New York City. It's not going to happen unless you want to take out a $5 million loan, but make your practice your own, and make sure that you're adding pieces that are going to help you provide better dentistry for your patients, so that at the end of the day, we can all be successful like Katie.
Yeah, that's a good point, Zach. I think that, he talked about part of the question was, can you cheap yourself out so much that it affects quality? And from a dental material standpoint, that's never really, you're never really going to get to that point. Where you end up getting into trouble with that stuff is by overspending, like you said, on technology before you're ready, because every dentist has a storage unit of crap that they bought that did not do what they wanted it to do, or was, it just didn't live up to their expectations. Like, no one has a storage unit full of like, oh, that impression material wasn't any good. It's always technology. It's always, some sort of air abrasion unit or hard tissue laser or scanner or mill that they didn't fully integrate or whatever that does that. You're like the nickel and diming of adhesives or composites or whatever, like that's not going to be the thing that breaks you. I think the thing that breaks you is over investing in expensive technology before you're ready, and or not integrating it well, betting on the wrong companies, that kind of stuff. Katie, you guys have integrated some technology stuff early on, and I'm sure you have a plan for other stuff. What was kind of the first stuff that you brought in, and why?
When we got our practice loan, we basically got a quote from an equipment person before we even did anything with our startup, because we wanted to see, there was kind of like must-haves, wants, and stuff like that. And one of the things that we did early on was we wanted that cone beam. We wanted to have that in our practice. We knew that implants would be in our future. I do a lot of endo, so it was going to be important to have from the get-go. And so that went into our loan, and then we only were able to build out 2 ops. Of course, we went the expensive route with the equipment, got all the 8X stuff. So I think, just kind of added things slowly, and also knowing that we have this big loan that we want to kind of dial back as we get more and more successful. So our compromise was not paying ourselves very much for the last 3 years, until the last couple months. And yeah, sorry, my husband just said you're welcome, because we lived off of his salary for a really long time. And I know that not everybody has that option. And so, we got an iTero, but that was after we had been in practice open for a year. And, obviously we're adding more stuff as the implant thing comes up. But just for us, I would say my overhead is definitely higher than Zach's right now, but that's because we have very, very high rent. And then we still have this big practice loan that we're trying to pay down.
So, but also, Brendan, to address the second part, affecting staff culture or pay or anything like that, you never want to sacrifice the kind of backbone of the practice, because without the team, you're not going to have the patients. You're not going to have the credibility with the patients, because guys, you can walk in there and tell a patient they need a root canal. You walk out and they're going to turn to the assistant and be like, does he know what he's talking about? Should I really do that? So you need to have the team on your side. And, we do that. We do a modified version of profit sharing. So everybody knows what purchases we're making and why we're trying to make them, how it's going to increase the profitability of the office. But they're also a part of not selling of the dentistry, but, if we encourage them to, talk to patients about Invisalign and things like that. And so they are bonused off of those discussions that they have, the aesthetic cases that they bring to the table, things like that. So everybody, when the practice wins, everybody wins. And part of the practice winning is keeping that overhead low. And they all understand that. And you have to have some level of openness with your team on the financials. They do not need to know, you do not need to open up your books. They do not need to see the P&Ls, but they need to understand why you're making the decisions that you're making in the practice, so that way they can be on board with them.
And Brendan, you said you had a follow-up to that?
Yes. If I can, I don't want to, but you mentioned multiple integrations, multiple baby steps towards building the efficiency of the practice. For all the young dentists on the call right now who are going to be graduating in, a lot of debt, hundreds of thousands in some cases, what would you say is the first thing to really focus, that first integration that you think would make a major difference in getting going?
I think Katie had it.
What?
The CB. I think the CBCT is. Yeah.
If you're gonna pick one big ticket item, that's just what I would say is what you should do. Everyone will be like, buy a $15,000 piano used, and then buy this later. But the sooner you get that into your practice, the faster you're going to use it. You're going to profit from using it, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, it's got an ROI, 100%. Right? That's kind of the point of that. There's other things that don't necessarily have an ROI, or they don't have a defined ROI, return on investment. Whereas a CBCT, especially just from an implant perspective, definitely, an ROI there. And then you add on the endo stuff to it, and then the oral surgery stuff that you can find, and the different diagnosis and all that stuff, and you're there. Gina, I think we probably have time to do kind of a quick rapid fire. I got one final question, kind of one thought, and I want your input on it too. So I'm going to save you for last, Gina, but we'll start with Zach and then we'll go on to Katie. Zach, what's the one thing you wish you knew before going into private practice?
That I did not know everything about being a practice owner. Humility is something that I did not have. And it's something that if I did have, I would have had a more open mind about it. Even going through my associateship.
You might want to work on this.
Thanks, Gina. It's an ongoing struggle. But
Zach's the best at being humble. He's the absolute best at being humble.
When I was an associate, I thought I could do everything better than the owner. I was like, oh no. And when I was in the military, it was the same thing. Part of the reason I got sent to Afghanistan is because I thought I knew more than my superior officers. But when you're an actual owner, you realize everything that you don't know and that you didn't know. So be humble, try and learn from every experience that you have. Like try and pick something from every good experience, every bad experience. Just learn something, put it in your back pocket for when you do become an owner, and just realize that just like when you get out of dental school, you're going to learn 10 times what you learned in dental school. Practice ownership that first year is going to be like baptism by fire, and all these things that you had no idea would even be part of practice ownership. Owning a practice is like 25% doing dentistry and 75% everything else. So just keep that in mind.
Katie.
Yeah, to what Zach just said, my partner, Lindsay, she always says that she's a part-time dentist and a full-time business owner, just with the amount, because we split our time at our office. We only see patients 2 days right now. And so that's why she says that. But I think other than the fact that my landlord is not my friend and only wants a paycheck once or be paid once a month, the other thing I wish I would have known is just going back to the staff and how difficult it is to manage the team, and that would be the hardest part about being a dentist. Not the dentistry, it's just the people that are working with you, and that is definitely been something that I didn't know going into it, and it has been a huge challenge. Like I said, though, getting better.
And Gina, I want to know yours.
I did not realize going into this that the buck is going to stop with me. You know, like I knew this instinctively. You think that, but you don't realize how much you are literally in charge of everything. And people come in and they try to sway you on their terms. They'll say things like, you know, well, my mother is sick, so I can't be here today, but you need an assistant for your patients. And you have to make decisions that are not just good for you or they're going to make you feel good. You have to make decisions that are good for your practice, even if you don't like those decisions. And I didn't realize this because I'm not a nice person, but I'd like to be one. And sometimes you can't. Sometimes you have to make the most difficult decisions that you have to make for your practice, for your patients, for your employees who are there.
And where can the people listening find you? Like, give me your podcast name. give me your social handle. Like where, because I'm guessing that there's going to be how many people do we have on here? 31 dental students who are going to want to pick each of your brains, and so I want them to know where they can connect with you.
Excellent question. Dr. Gina D on Instagram. I am on Facebook. I am on a couple of Facebook groups that I'm not necessarily proud of, but I am there. Just Google me. You'll if anyone wants to find me, they'll find me. That's Katie. Another realization that I came to. If anyone wants to talk to me, they'll find the way. Brandon, if you need a job for a couple of years before you start your own practice, because I can tell you are a starter, wow. Hit me up.
Brendan, come to Indiana. It's wonderful here.
Let's see, Los Angeles or California?
Instagram if you could put your Instagram in that, I want to follow you guys.
Yeah, great.
Josh, you never answered that question yourself.
Oh, we'll do it at episode 2. I'll give my answer in episode 2. How about that? Katie, where can they find you?
If you want to see pictures of my baby and dog, you can follow my personal Instagram. It's just KT and my last name, Stuchlick. It's private, but I will let you in if you're, I don't post any dental stuff unless it's like me with other people at a dental meeting. But my office Instagram is Dentistry of the Oaks, or you can send me an email, katiestuchlickdds@gmail.com, or find me on Facebook. Again, I might be kind of hard to find unless you're friends with one of these people.
Zach.
I'm kind of too old to really use Instagram. You can, I think I just looked, I have like 5 posts, but it's Dr_ZAK. And I do try to answer every message I get. I get some from, new dentists that are just asking questions. You can also find me at zak@apexpaymentsolutions.com. It's a long email address. We're working on that. But probably the best way is just on Facebook, just ZAKALLMAND. I'm pretty active in some groups, and also I'm on GroupMe. If you want to look me up, you can do that too.
I love that we're all plugging Facebook, which is a platform that probably only about 5 people of the 30 plus on this deal actually ever go on because their parents are on it. And I guess, that's how it goes. You can find me at Joshua Austin DDS on Instagram. I'm not on Facebook. I'm not on Snapchat or TikTok because I'm 42 years old, and any 42-year-old man who's on Snapchat or TikTok there's something nefarious going on. So, Adam, do you have any final remarks or any final closings for us?
Not pre-written down, but essentially just stay tuned for part 2, because it seems like we have a lot of topics that people still have questions on, especially related to like financial aspects of practice ownership. So definitely stay tuned, because I think this series went really well.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much.